Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning.
A podcast where we share with you great insights about everything family from over 30 years of parenting 7 kids and over a decade of equipping parents through our Crazy Cool Family ministry.
So let us inspire and equip you to build your best family.
Hey, parents and others. I wonder how many others
What
listen
does
to
others
our
mean? Like your pets, cats, dogs,
Yeah.
neighbors,
No, we have some
friends?
People, we have some people that listen. Their kids listen with them, so they would be an other.
Children.
Yes.
Okay, parents and children.
Yeah. Parents, children, dogs, and cats. Hey, we are talking about today. We have a great podcast for you, and the podcast is going to be "Should I Take My Kid to Therapy?" And we have our wonderful daughter, McKenzie. McKenzie, new mom, McKenzie. And so the baby's asleep right now. So we're trying to wait and see. We're trying to get the podcast in before the baby wakes up. So hi, Kenzie.
So she might wake up. But what I was going to say, just to add to what Don was saying, is that we are talking about relationships in this series. And I would say that this is parent to kid. And so as we come in, parents, it's our responsibility to give our children what they need. You know, we buy them diapers when they're babies. Maybe we nurse them. Maybe we feed them, formula. But we're taking care of our kids along the way. And one of the things that we would need to do as parents is decide, does my child need therapy? But it's not just therapy. Like, I think parents, sometimes we think therapy means one thing, but it actually means another. And so we're going to actually specifically talk about play therapy, which is Mackenzie's passion. And she's very, very good at it. She probably did play therapy with her friends when she was 5 and didn't know it. But she's now been educated.
Well, I want, and Mackenzie will let you talk in just a minute.
Maybe.
I think that I was reading the other day in a parenting, magazine or something. It said 10 reasons to take your kids to therapy. And I think in this age today where therapy is more prevalent, there is a thought process of, oh my goodness, should I take my kid to therapy? And my kid has this behavioral problem, or every problem we have, should we put them on drugs? Should we put them, all these different reasons and so really today we're just going to clarify some things and tell you more about what therapy is, particularly play therapy. So now you can talk, Kenzie.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to talk about this. This is something I'm really passionate about. I am a recent graduate of a clinical mental health counseling program where I did get to learn about play therapy. I would not consider myself an expert.
We would
consider myself.
We have you on the expert pedestal.
No, don't. Please do your own research and information things. But with that, I feel like I have a good grasp of the basics around play therapy and think that it's just a helpful thing for parents to know and know that this tool is available for them if it's something that makes sense. And also just really care about empowering parents to be the primary support for their kids.
And I think that that's a great way to say it, is that this tool is available. We're always giving parents more tools to put in their toolbox to help them connect. So much of what we teach at Crazy Cool Family is, hey, let's learn how to listen. That's a tool in your toolbox so that you can parent your child better. Suzanne, we were just talking before the podcast. Tell them a little bit about some different therapies you took our kids to, when we were young, when we had younger kids.
For sure. And so, they, Michael and Mackenzie went to speech therapy. And so to learn how to articulate and say different things. And some of them went to therapy because their eyes weren't tracking. And some of them went to auditory discrimination therapy to learn how to use their ears. And I remember somewhere along the way, some therapists told you guys to crawl because you needed to build those tracks in your brain because you didn't crawl enough as a baby. And so I was all about the therapies. And then we were even laughing before we started the podcast because I was like, oh, yeah. That Molly, Madeline, Macy, Mackenzie, they could have used therapy. They could have used therapy here in this area. They could have used play therapy here. They could have totally played out their frustrations when that next sibling was born.
And then one thing we were talking about that I didn't know. Sorry, I keep interrupting, Mackenzie.
I'm sorry, you can't.
But one of the things we were talking about that I didn't understand is that, and let's go into this now of what is play therapy, that a child from 3 to 12, that's what they will do if they go into, instead of counseling, like may happen at the teenage years or what we would do, they call it play therapy. Well, so what is that? And
yeah, so to clarify what play therapy is, think about the clinical mental health space, the kids' emotions, their space to process. That's what play therapy is. One of the big taglines of play therapy is that play is their language and toys are their words. And so imagine if you're trying to capture 1,000 words from a kid. If you give them a giraffe and an elephant and they play something out, they're able to process with 1,000 words what adults would process in 1,000 words. It like gives them the tools to be able to express themselves. And in a playroom, there's a ton of toys. There's aggressive toys. There's nurturing toys. There's like oftentimes a house with different people. There's just so many different words to give kids, and you'll see your kids play things out all the time. Whenever they have two different things, they'll play out whatever they've been taught, whatever they've been trained to do. And so that's one of the pieces of play therapy. Think of play as their language, toys are their words. And in this space of play therapy, kids get to choose. That's one of the biggest things that the counselor creates the space for, is that in a lot of places, kids don't get to choose. They get told, put your shoes on, get ready to go. We're going to use the bathroom. Here's your snack. You don't get to pick. We got to go. And there's just an ownership as the parent to make decisions for your kid. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of places where they get to choose, but in this space, they can do it their own way, however they want. And so it allows for, if your kid's super wound up, to have a space where they get to kind of chillax. Or if they're super messy and doing all these things, they can make a mess and not have it be a, oh my goodness, you just messed up my whole house. Like, it allows for them to get to do what they need to do to process what they need to process.
And so just to kind of step into the playroom, the child comes into the room and you just let them go to whatever draws their attention.
Yeah. And in this age with so many screens, how often are kids actually playing?
Uh-huh.
Are they ever actually getting to play? True. So they walk into this room and there's a ton of words for them. And they often come in like, even though they're basic toys that we would think, are you seriously entertained by this? They're like, oh my goodness, like I'm given language. Like I'm given the opportunity to play things out. And oftentimes the first few sessions is them just exploring the playroom and taking things off the shelf. And there's cash registers and all these different puppet things to like put to words and get familiar.
You keep saying to put to words. I'd love to explore that a little more. So I mean, and you say, Suzanne, that a child's play is an adult's work.
Well, no, a child's play is their work. Yes, it's an adult's work, but that's literally their work. Exactly. And so I love it.
When you talk about words, so what do you mean by that it draws out, and why do you want to draw out their words? What are you trying to do with that? When you're from the parent perspective, what are they trying to learn, and how does that help?
Yeah, think about whenever you feel heard by someone and you feel like even if they're not able to put it fully in words, you know that they hear what you're saying and why you're saying it and how you're saying it. That's what your kid's craving, is to be heard and understood.
But they don't have the vocabulary.
Yeah. And so there's this huge wall for them being able to express, like, I'm mad that my sister was born and I don't want her to be here. Like, imagine,
she's taking up all my attention and you love her more than you love me. And all those thoughts are coming in there. Thoughts being translated into feelings, but not words, because they don't have them. Oh, so good.
And so they're getting mad at you and the baby, and they're hitting the baby all the time, and you're saying, don't hit the baby. So then they're saying again, I hate this baby. Like that's what's coming up in them, is I don't want this baby here anymore. So the playroom allows for them to take a baby doll and hit the baby doll and get that anger out and process, okay, I don't have words for this, but that's
so. And we say a lot that kids can understand much more than they can communicate at every age. Teenagers are the same way. I mean, there's always issues with they understand more than they can. A little kid, if you watch them, they're processing all the time, but they're not able to communicate back. Is that kind of what you're trying to do? So with play therapy, is get them to communicate with you through play?
Yeah.
That's what you mean by words?
Yes. You got it. With our words.
But I'm just curious how that comes out. I'm trying to picture that as a parent. I've never done play therapy. So, I'm trying to picture that as a parent. what I'm going to result, if I'm going to spend money on play therapy, I want to get a certain result from it.
So,
and how does that, where does that come out?
And so I think that the next question would be, so what's like your role as the counselor? Like, what are you going to do with my child? How are you going to interact with my child so that therapy happens, if you will?
Yeah. So one of the important pieces to know is the kid is the client. And that's kind of disorienting because you're like, no, this is my kid. Like I'm bringing my kid here, but they get the same respect of confidentiality as an adult would. And so the way that the counselor works with the parent is by translating themes that they're seeing play out in the kiddo in the playroom. And so with that, the counselor's role is to supplement you as the parent to create a safe space to build relationship and a attachment with your kid so that they can feel safe to process. And oftentimes kids will be able to play things out in the safe relationship. And with that, the counselor also takes more of a non-directive approach than a directive approach.
Like, explain that.
Depending on like their theoretical approach, which I'm not going to go into all the theoretical language. But basically what that means.
We need a master's in counseling by the time we're done with this, okay?
To understand.
Definitely. That would take a lot longer. But a non-directive approach versus directive approach is the idea of like a directive approach would be like, hey, we're going to go over here and play with this. Hey, we're going to do this. Like oftentimes.
Like what us as parents do all day long.
Yes.
We direct our children all day. Okay, good.
But non-directive is like, hey, actually in this space, you get to choose. Like you get to decide what we play with, how you play with it. And that will often be disorienting for the kid because they're used to every other adult in their life looking at them being like, telling them what to do.
Bossy. We're bossy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The non-directive is not bossy. It's the opposite. It might seem more like disengaged to a kid, but they're actually very engaged because they're tracking what the kid's doing and reflecting the emotion that's coming out or reflecting the content the kid's throwing out there. And so it's like getting to allow the kid to be valued. Like everything that they are saying is valued. Everything that they are playing is valued. And there's a attention that the counselor is providing that the kid probably isn't getting in other spaces. That is them stepping fully into their world and allowing for them to play out whatever is happening in their world without forcing them to then be like, explain to me why this mom is running around like this. It's like, no, you don't have to explain anything. You're doing it. And I'm going to put some language out there for you to see that, that mommy is mad. That mom, and another piece of the
and all the moms are now going, I do not want my child to go to play therapy. I do not want them to play with the baby.
But then, okay, so, in some respects, I'm kind of playing dumb here, but I also really have questions.
I'm also really dumb.
I'm also really dumb. Yeah. So some is it, because I can.
Not you.
I know, but no, I'm saying that I do have dumb questions here, but like at the end of the day, is it? So then, does the therapist, the role of the counselor, is that to try to help the parent determine what that child really is feeling and wants to communicate to the parent? And then second question is, does the counselor then help teach the parent how to help their child play with more of a non-directive approach and be more creative, expressive, things like that? I know two-part question.
I was going to say two.
Yeah, I would say the counselor is really there to support. And so it depends on what the parent's coming in needing. And another big piece of this is if you have a 3-year-old or if you have a 12-year-old, that will be a very different approach to what that kid would need. Also, if you have a 4-year-old that acts like a 12-year-old, that will also impact a 12-year-old acting like a 4-year-old. That will impact the way that the counselor will approach this kid. And everything that the counselor is learning with playing with your kid is to help you know and understand your kid better. So it's one thing to be like, okay, here's some tips on how you should approach your kid. But if I've sat down with your kid and played with them for 12 hours, I will have I will be way better at equipping you on how to support your kid.
So is that what happens after you've done a few sessions or whatever? The role of the counselor is to sit down with the parent and go, okay, here's what I'm seeing. And then here's some.
And doing it from a theme standpoint, not a detailed standpoint. Like, oh, she took the Barbie and threw it against the window several times. No, but I see that she's
she's like, are you seeing some anger play out in the home? Like,
yes. And so it's not, so just hear that too, parents, that your counselor's not going to come at you like you're doing this wrong and you're doing this wrong at all. They're going to very gently and mercifully say, these are the themes that I'm seeing. Are you seeing this? And so I love that, just to know, because I know that even sometimes as parents, we're super vulnerable to present our children to somebody who's way more of an expert and better at this than I am, and they're going to come back and tell me all the things I'm doing wrong.
Well,
and they're not being the parent. Like,
right.
You're spending every day with them.
Right.
They're not having to discipline them. They're letting them play things out. And so that's not, like, that's the piece that's so weird about the counseling role. It's unlike any other relationship. And you as the parent you're not supposed to be like the counselor. Like, you're not supposed to be, but creating a space for them to process and be honest, you can totally do that. And that's a part of being a parent.
So is the goal of the counselor, though, is it to help the child or the parent or both?
Yes, both.
Yes.
Yeah. So that during the therapy sessions, they're going to help the child, right? Because they're going to interact with them, but also then it's kind of, you get take home work to try to take what they're doing and really make it happen in the home where you're there with them all the time.
Yeah, which every counselor is different. And so the point of this too is to be able to bring questions to the counselor for them to inform how they operate. Because there's these basic play therapy things like play is their language towards other words. In this space they get to choose. Like, those are basic counseling things, but each counselor is so different. And so you can say, as you're looking for someone, hey, what will this relationship look like for me to be able to support my kiddo? And how are you going to help me support them better?
Yeah.
And what does it look like for me to give them, the kids, space to have a safe relationship with you? Because also it's not helpful whenever the kid goes through counseling and the parent asks, so what did you do in there? What did you talk about? Like, that's not the role of the parent. The point is to, like, give them space to,
I love that. Yeah.
to have processed what they processed. And if they want to share with you, you can, but you, like, don't ask what happened in the room that time, because that's then forcing them to find words for things that they don't have.
That's so good. And so it makes my heart so happy, because what you're doing is you're being an advocate for the child, and you're being a liaison for what's happening in the child's life, how they're processing and feeling it. And then you're bridging a gap, or making a bridge, I guess, to the parents, and empowering and equipping them on how to connect with their child, but not necessarily with, well, do this, this, and this. It's not directive, it's indirective. And I just, that's beautiful. I mean, it's what we talk about at Crazy Cool Family all the time is, we at Crazy Cool Family, we're the advocate for your child. We wrote the book, Crazy Cool Family, and we put all of our kids' voices in there so that you could hear from a child who has grown up enough and have the words to tell you. Because so many times your child wants to say, Mommy, please don't yell at me. It hurts my feelings, and it makes me think you don't love me anymore, and it makes me think I'm a terrible, horrible person. But all the child can say is, I hate you. I mean, and they don't.
Yeah.
And so, I love it. Okay.
So the counselor then, as we think about, I think about then, parents think a lot, oh, my kid has this behavior. Should I take them to therapy, or should I take them to counseling? But also with that, so I want to talk about that. What are some signs, or what are some things that would benefit, but
your kids,
benefit your kids from counseling or should we use counseling or therapy?
Yes,
kind of interchangeable. Yeah.
Okay. So their accounts. So I was trying to think about how to come out, but then also what I would also see is you're picking your therapist or your counselor, then really that relationship's important too. So maybe that parent should talk to the counselor first, because you're entrusting your child to this person that's going to have an influence in their lives. You want to make sure. And so one, like when should a parent think, oh, play therapy would be good? And secondly, how do they choose that person? I keep
stacking
doing
those questions.
I know,
if you go to counseling school, you'll be like, that's not
question one, it's question two. So let me just get to this one, and if I remember the second one. So
yes, great question.
See, that shows how brilliant you are.
Just gotta help these parents.
Shop for a counselor. It often takes a lot of work and effort to find someone that you feel like you trust and that you like, and it's frustrating if you get all the way to then meeting with someone and then you're like, I don't feel comfortable with this person, but you can say no to meeting with someone if you don't feel comfortable. they're okay for you to say no to them. Like that's
meaning the therapist or the counselor is okay. So spoken from the mouth of a counselor, you can say this isn't going to work. They don't take it. You don't take it personally.
But you're a very secure person, Kenzie. What if you get an insecure counselor?
Then run.
So it's not worth it to step into all this relationship and then look up and be like, yeah, I had a bad feeling about this counselor and now we're halfway through. Like if you walk in feeling that, the work that your kid's doing is vulnerable, and so you want to know, like, you want to trust the counselor that you're working with. And so I would just recommend like shopping around, use referrals. If you know of someone who's had a counselor and they had a good experience, go for it if you have a trusted space. And then I guess for some signs, this is going to be a very gray response, which means that you'll need some discernment. But I would say that most kiddos could benefit from it. Just think about all the transitions that they're walking through. Every time there's a new sibling that's added, or if there's a death, or if from like their dog to their grandpa to a family member, like they don't know how to process their grief, and to moving, changing schools, to a bully. I mean, or even like being a bully. Like you don't know. There's like so many different pieces of transitions, and so I guess the question is like, as this kid is transitioning, again advocating for the kid, would a space be supportive for them? And it wouldn't hurt to like take a season of counseling, getting familiar with a counselor, and then you can do like check-in sessions where they can go play with their counselor. So let's say your kid's 5 and they've walked through a pretty traumatic experience, that whatever that is, they could go to therapy for 6 months to a year, and then you could do once a month or once every other month, or it could be more of a supplemental space for them to process the things that they're carrying.
And this is something like insurance doesn't cover this. This is really kind of a parent pay type.
It depends.
So there is cases where insurance so they might check with their insurance provider to see if there's like chiropractic care or something. Sometimes depends on the plan you have, things like that. Okay.
So back to what you were saying about what would maybe have you take your child. We had some friends of ours, and they one of our things is siblings as best friends, and so we gave them all these ideas and all this stuff, and they played all that out, and it still was not knitting the brother and the sister together. And so she went ahead and took as a big brother, little sister, went ahead and took the sister to play therapy, and I don't remember how many months into it, but she had just shared with me that one day the sister got in the car and told the brother, "I love you," and she hadn't done that. I mean, she was like 7 or 8 and hadn't done that for 5 years, just ever since she was a little bitty. And so the play therapist just played through that with her to help her. And so parents, your kids, and the Holy Spirit knows in you, hey, this is somewhere where you can get some help. I mean, going back to the therapy with my kids, when you guys had dyslexia, I knew I couldn't do it on my own, but I knew that I could get some therapy, and we did like Barton curriculum, and we found some resources, tools, as you had said, to come into our family and support what's going on. And so I want to just go back to, your kids. You can see in their eyes when they're troubled. You can see when it's clouded. You can ask the Holy Spirit, is this something, where do I need to get the help from? Is this something that they need to play out somewhere? And then do it.
And you can come in as a parent with goals, but your kid will also have goals. And the counselor will prioritize the kids' goals more than your goals.
Oh, that's
so you
good.
might be like, okay, here's the 15 things I'm seeing wrong. Here's the things that I'm freaking out about. They're doing
parents,
this,
we will.
This. Yeah.
Yes.
But the kid,
and then we'll say, fix it.
And the counselor will say, haha, no, I can't just fix it like that, because that's not the approach that we're using. And the approach that the counselor is using is prioritizing why the kid is why the kid wants to be there, and creating a space for the kid to want to be there, which again, like, the kid doesn't know what they're doing. Like, they're going to a playroom to play, and the space is different than what an adult experiences in counseling, where they're like, okay, I'm wanting to work on my self-esteem. I'm wanting to work on these like 70 different things, where the kid's like, I'm just here to play. Like, I'm just playing out whatever.
I love it. The advocate for kids. Well, I mean, it's just.
And as I listen to it, as a person who's never taken a child to play therapy before and really don't know, I would say I am somewhat uninformed of the whole process and things, which is a lot of parents that we talk to. We tell parents all the time, be a learner about about parenting, about things. And so it to me, it's like if somebody comes to one of our conferences or reads one of our books, they might say, oh, I need to be more of a listener. And then they go practice that because they've learned something and they're taking it back into their family. I feel like the therapist does that. It helps us to learn more about our child. It helps us to, like with the family that they went there, it helps bring about breakthrough where maybe that we are struggling to get the breakthrough to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's just a facilitation process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I just think that, like, if I were to bring my kid to you, I'm gonna come in with this attitude of fix them. Mm-hmm. Like,
it gets worse oftentimes before it gets better, and so it's similar to the adult counseling. Like, whenever you start unpacking things, sometimes you get unregulated, and it then makes it to where you have a harder time working through in your day-to-day life because you just unpacked something. Like, if your kid's like, I really don't like my sister, in therapy, and they put words to that, then they might be more angry at their sister because they've actually put words into it. And so if you're like, I'm taking you to therapy to help you not get mad at your sister, and now you're being worse,
you're screaming at her.
Yeah,
that's
it's
good.
Like similar to
I'm paying for you to get better.
Yeah, and that's where oftentimes
reality is better. That is better. Mm-hmm. Worse is the beginning of better.
Yeah, them realizing and expressing and putting to words, and then you as the parent, like, try not to respond out of a place of anger, respond out of a place of wanting to attach with your kid, relate with your kid, see them in the moment, and being like, and this is some language that a counselor would use, is like, yeah, in this moment, and like, you're really mad at your sister right now. Like, there's something, just don't even try to put words explaining it, just identifying the emotion of like, wow, you're really angry right now. I can see that you're angry. Where do we need to put that anger so we don't hit our sister? Like, allowing for them to let it work through their body. Because oftentimes we say, kid, put your anger in a box. Don't ever like open it. And
stop doing that.
And then it shows up somewhere else in passive aggressiveness or in them. And so that's a large part, is like, you can equip them with language. Like, that's what they're craving, is a way to express their feelings. And so having feeling charts and ways to allow for kids to be able to
feel. That kind of leads us to another question. So the parent's role is to identify and decide to do therapy, and then to put them with the therapist. But then as they, start to do this, what is the parent's role going forward? I mean, throughout the process.
To support,
how do they support it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that could be a continual question that you ask the therapist. Like, is there anything that I can do better? Is there anything that, not even better, but is there anything that I can be doing as you're working with them? Because again, each kid is so different, and a 3-year-old versus a 12-year-old will be different. So that's the great response. Another piece of how to, I guess the biggest thing is like respect and love. Respecting your kid, having this mutual respect is something that I'm really passionate about and have seen as really important. And the way that plays out, my mom refers to it as like adult world versus kid world.
Yeah.
I think of it as like, there's this little song that talks about, you've got a big clock, I have a little clock too. And just these kids, like, if you can see the kid through the piece of like, wow, you have a life too. Like, you playing, you spilling something on the floor, that wasn't a direct hit trying to take us back 5 hours from whatever we want to do, or 15 minutes. But they're figuring out this world, and they are figuring out their clock, their life, their day to day. And so respecting them and their emotions and their feelings.
You even just mentioned a little while ago something I didn't even know existed, which is, it makes sense that it exists, but there's even a name for it: child-parent relationship therapy. CPRT. It's like, there is actually therapy that helps you as a parent I was like, I needed that when I needed to like get a degree.
Amen.
I mean, that's kind of what we've done, is we had to figure it out over time. But like, this is actually a therapist that does that. So tell us about that a little more.
Yeah, oftentimes it's in a group. And so there's a therapist that's helping parents learn how to play with their kids. Any parent can do it, but oftentimes like foster care parents or people who have walked through a lot of trauma, or kids who've walked through a lot of trauma, it's a really helpful way for them to have a space where they get to choose and they get to decide. And so the counselor will train the parents to have the toys that are specific toys for playing out what's going on. And they'll like have a mat. Whenever this mat's out with all the toys, then the kid gets to choose what they want to do and how to play things out. And it allows for the parent to then learn how to have a relationship and hear their kids through this specific model. So it's because the parent has a way better relationship, with the kiddo. And so practically it's like you film yourself, and then the counselor will give you feedback on, hey, like, are you seeing how they're playing this out? Or, hey, this is another way that you can be more non-directive to allow the kid to be able to play out more, or just give some helpful equipping on what it looks like to listen.
And so I love that. Parents, did you hear that? If you're not comfortable having your child be alone in a room with a therapist, then go get the training and learn how to play with your child and create a safe place for your child, and then send that information to the therapist, and then they can interpret it for you and empower and equip you. Once again, bridging the gap between your child's, lack of words and your understanding to their behavior.
And I've even had a friend who explained that she walked through this with her kid, and they walked through some pretty traumatic experiences, and she was like, it was a game changer for me to learn how to hear him, to love him, to notice him, to understand. And like, they don't have to use words, like, to hear them is not then to be able to articulate everything that they're saying. It's to create a space for them to process and work the things out, and then just let it be.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to recount of like, oh, hey, remember whenever you played this out? Oh, hey, remember that? This is like, no, just like, they're so present focused. Kids are, they're not thinking about the past or the future. And so whatever currently comes up for them, they play it out, and then they're done. Like, they don't have to rehash things over and over.
So like,
so wise.
And with both types of therapy, so often we need to go to the chiropractor, and it's like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to go 3 times a week for the next 8 years. And it's going to, what kind of timing does it take to see? I know it varies, and, but I mean, in general, like, what works from a timing
like,
standpoint?
even to build, it feels like even to build the relationship with a therapist. I mean, it feels like that there's huge groundwork being laid in the first 3 sessions, but it feels like when the 4th session happens is when the relationship is comfortable enough that the child can fill in the blank.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers in my head right now, which you could look up on any play therapy thing. They would say estimately.
You need 3 to 6. Yeah,
but I would say it's more than you probably think. That it would be, because you think, okay, quick fit, like, they're working through this, but again, they don't know this person.
Because it takes time to build relationships.
Yeah, and the point, like, the thing that is so beautiful in therapy is the relationship and having a safe space to process. And with kids, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter, depending on their experience and their age and where they're at. So I would say I would give it like 8 sessions, and then touch base with the counselor and be like, hi, what kind of progress do you feel like they're safe with you? Do you feel like where do you feel like we're at? And then expect another 8 sessions to then be like, okay,
make some headway.
Yeah. And give it a season.
A season. I like that a lot better. I love that.
Is that usually like once a week?
It depends kind of on your availability and the counselor's availability, but I would say about once a week. It's probably not more than once a week, and I would say every other week, especially starting out, would be a pretty long period of time between
for a child, because they're so present focused. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so what would, just give us a couple ideas of what would be a couple questions that you would, as a parent, ask a counselor?
I would ask them whatever you would want to know about them that would make you feel safe to have them alone.
So
with
personally,
your kid
like, are you married? Do you have children? How long have you been in the business? Okay.
Yeah,
So
like
I mean that whatever that parent. I mean, those are the ones that just rattle off the top of my head. Do you love Jesus? Do you? Yeah.
And then like explaining like what's your theoretical approach? Like that could be a helpful way for you to understand if you're wanting to do more research on this counselor and how they're operating. They should be operating from things that are research based and shown to work. And so if you're wanting some more information, you could do that. Another piece is asking like, what kind of resources do you have based on, as you're learning about my kid, can I like have certain resources? Because as they're playing with your kid, they should be like, or could be still learning about the different things. So if you bring a kid in with a certain diagnosis or a certain thing, they could be doing some research to then learn how to best support your kid. And so asking like, hey, can I have some of those resources? I think
That's
another
good.
question is like, what do I like when confidentiality, like what's the relationship of confidentiality in this space? Because they're going to tell you if their kid seems like they're a harm to themselves or others, or if someone's a harm to them. And as they're working with minors, they are a mandated reporter. And so they will have to report if And so like, they'll spiel that off. But if you feel like you don't really comprehend what that looks like, you can ask clarifiers of, okay, what does that look like? And then I would say just anything you're curious about and that you want to know more about the process, because again, each counselor is a little different. And so asking the basics and then asking, okay, well, how is that different for you, or how does that show up for you in the space? And then asking if you can see the playroom. That's another piece that could be helpful.
The thing that you said that just keeps resonating with me, that would really probably mess with me as a parent, is after a play therapy session, the child getting in the car and us going home, I would very much want to say, well, how did it go? What did you play? What did you talk about? And so what would you recommend to be the conversation in the car on the way home with your child that doesn't stress the child out or doesn't, that honors them and values them in the space that they just had, because they just processed a whole bunch. And in their mind, it's probably processed and now gone. And now I'm trying to pull them back into it again so I can be a part of it. And so I don't know, how do you encourage the parent to be a part of it without pulling the kid back down again,
Yeah. And the kid stepping back into their world.
Yeah.
And so respecting the piece of, you might have just processed something in your world, and then you're getting fronted with it right when you get in the car with your brother, or right when you get in, like right when you go to school the next day, and that's, I would say, if you can pick, because you'll have to be there during the counseling session, but if you can come without siblings, that could be helpful, which is pretty impossible because if you have 7 or multiple kids. But I would say just saying, hey, you can tell me whatever you want to tell me, but we can play whatever music we're going to play. And you can, just giving them still that indirective space of, hey, you can, basically giving them back that autonomy of, you can tell me or you don't have to tell me, but I'm here. And that's what the point of the parent is being like, I'm here. I want to be here for the rest of your life to process whatever you want to process. And you don't have to tell me what you don't want to tell me, but I'm available.
Well, and that's the beautiful part of knowing your child. I mean, if your child's an introvert or they're an internal processor, then you might just be like, buddy, I'm so proud of you for going to therapy today. I just want you to know I prayed for you the whole time you were in there. And you just leave it at that. But if they're an external processor, then you say, whenever you're ready, I want to hear whatever you want to tell me. And it, in any way. And so just knowing your child.
Yeah.
Amazing information. I just think it's more about, it's just, there's so many tools. I mean, I compare it to, in my day, nobody took me to select baseball and coaches and all the people, it's no different really in so many ways of, we're going to get select baseball help. I'm going to get a hitting coach for my child.
Yes.
Because we wouldn't think anything about that as a parent today, because I want my child to be the best hitter possible for their select team. Well, I mean, what's better to help kids be relationally healthy and to be the best relationally they can be, that they're secure, they're processing things, they're able to articulate it, play through it, whatever it is. And so I just think it's really cool in these days. You get so many tools out there, and this is a tool. Some people do hire a hitting coach, some people don't. I mean, it's like just another tool that you have in your tool belt to bring better relationships in your home.
So speaking of tools, Kenzie, what are some books that you would recommend, that we go find, read, look into?
Yeah, so a few books one is Raising Emotionally Strong Boys. I listened to this one because I'm an audiobook person. And it is a really helpful book written by 2 therapists, David Thompson being one, just explaining how to raise emotionally strong boys. One small takeaway from it that I say all the time is girls have 3 times the amount of language as boys whenever they're developing. And so they have 3 times more emotional words than most boys do. And so how do you as a parent equip your boy with words of feelings to where then they can express themselves?
That's
and
good.
That's a piece.
Because we think they're not, then they don't need to, when reality is they very much need to. They just don't have the same
still working on that one personally.
Yes. So that is a good one. And then The Whole Brain Child, or really anything by Daniel Siegel.
He's amazing.
Really helpful to give some perspective on your kiddo.
You know what I found with that is that with Daniel Siegel and parents, if you, like you say, anything with him, what that does is all the things we teach you at Crazy Cool Family about relationships, it scientifically supports what we're showing you. That the brain is hardwired for relationship, that there is so much benefit to connection. I was reading the book going, this is the scientific version of Crazy Cool Family in so many ways. So get The Whole Brain Child's a great book.
And then also, if you're wanting to go super counseling side, Deeray, Deeray, has a book on developmentally where kids are supposed to be at, and what that looks like, which your therapist can give that information. It's like, okay, I have a 4-year-old. Are they normal? Like, is this developmentally where they should be at? But she has some helpful books on just developmentally where your kids are and what's normal and what's potentially abnormal in certain age ranges. Because sometimes it's just they're a 4-year-old. Like sometimes that's just what is wrong is that they're a 4-year-old.
Yep, it's good.
And so I just wanted to say that at Crazy Cool Family, we say all the time that if you listen to them when they're 5, then they'll talk to you when you're 15.
And when they're 15.
When they, you pass 15. If you, the parent, listens to your child when they are little, then your child will talk to you when they're older. But what I'm hearing you say, I need to change that now. And I need to say, if you will play with them when they are little, then you will have a connection and an understanding, and they will know that you are safe when they are older.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it really goes back to the key from a Crazy Cool Family standpoint is creating that safe haven. Play therapy is another process by which you're developing a safe relationship. You're learning to be safe with your child and learning to help your child be safe with you, so that there is that continuity of relationships, so that we get to, I was just talking to a family the other day, and they were just talking about how they said, oh my goodness, Dad, the other kids, they're not a Crazy Cool Family. They can't talk to their parents, and you guys have said that for so long, is that's the goal, is you want to be that family that says, man, our kids know they can talk to us. Our kids know they can process with us, and they know they can play with us.
Yeah. And this work is hard. And so listening to your kids, one, takes a lot of discipline to put yourself aside to create a space for them to be a kid. And it probably will bring up things, especially if you didn't have good parents who heard you and listened to you, and especially if you have different emotions that haven't been processed.
Yes,
it will come up whenever you're creating a space for your kid. And so do the work you need to do and have the support you need, and know, like, okay, if I can't create the space for my kiddo, then that's where counseling might actually be helpful, so that they can still have this space and I can work through my stuff without quenching their experience to getting to process what they're walking through.
Well, that's so good. Parents, if you're not your healthiest, best self, that doesn't mean that you can't find someone who can help your child, Oh, that's so good.
And that's what we try to do for you, not in a counseling, but from a coaching standpoint as a parent, is to keep giving you things. So just, it goes right along with what we try to teach you through all the resources we have. So any last words?
You're doing an amazing job.
Yes, go parents. She's not talking to us. She's talking to you guys out there.
Yes, and every time you meet your kid with grace and truth and love and mercy, it is going a long way. And just a quick statistic is, if you, every time, you only have to do it right in connecting with them 30 to 40% of the time. If that. And
that's
we can make mistakes 60 or 70.
Yes, and they can still.
If you pray with them before they go to bed, or you tell them that
and
you
apologize
love them, and you apologize
a
couple times. Win. If you laugh with them, that's a big bonus.
Yeah, it's all about the building back. So whenever you do mess up or there is a wrong, it's knowing that you're still there and that there's a building back. So keep it up.
Good.
What I get out of it at the end is that what you said, big clock, little clock, you say, parent world, kid world, just watch them. And that's what kind of the counselor's doing, they're watching them in their world, and parents, and
they're curious.
Even if you don't do anything with play therapy, you never take your kid to a play therapist, take this away at the very end. Just go watch your kid play. Put them in their playroom and just go, you do whatever you want and watch what happens. And that's a way you can get to know your kid. I mean, and if you, that's a great, so anyway, the whole big clock, little clock, just watch them in their world, realize they have a world. It's important that you recognize their world. That's a great takeaway for today. I mean, there's lots of takeaways, but that's just one that I take is even with our grandkids, let's just watch them play. Let's give them freedom to explore their world.
Yeah, when they walk in and say, "Daddy, come play with me," that's them saying, I have something I need to tell you. I have something I want to let you know. And for you
I want to
say,
share my life with you.
Yeah, and then when you say, "No, I don't have time for that," that's them saying, "Okay."
Oh, I just did that yesterday with my grandson. Oh gosh. Okay, maybe I was 60% better though. But anyway, so.
But baby, you played with him
No
all that
shame.
morning.
I
You
know.
played
No
shame.
baseball.
I know, that's true. But I mean, I was cooking. You know, I remember I had to cook, and so I couldn't do it. And you stepped up and you played with him.
Well,
then y'all made the bird stuff.
But I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad you did. And we were going to wrap it up, but whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, okay, round two.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish every parent could just jump to grandparenting.
Yeah.
Because grandparenting, you have the space. We make the space to play. I mean, and that is, I pick up Sebastian a couple times a week and I bring him home, and the drive home, which is not even 10 minutes from his school to my house, he has got an elaborate plan of what we're going to do when we get home. And I literally,
got a lot of work.
Yes,
Got a lot of work to do.
Yes, got a lot of work to do. Yes. And I literally do whatever he wants. Like he was like, let's build a birdhouse. And so yesterday we stopped what we were doing in the middle of a meal and all of it. We put, peanut butter on seeds and hung them out. I mean, and so I literally stop what I'm doing for an hour and a half that I have him, which you can do as a grandparent. And I did not do that with my children. I did not.
I didn't do it yesterday. I'm just over here feeling guilty.
But we
And
did
so,
it.
but parents, but even just a little bit, right, Kenz? I mean, just a
Yes.
little bit.
But we did it as siblings. Like we would play with each other as siblings, and we would process things out and work through conflict, and we would bring our conflict to you and you would resolve it. And so your kids are built-in playmates and relational builders.
Therapy, play therapists.
Yeah, so
built-in play therapists for each other.
Either play with your kids or have lots of children. That's the
Or take them to play therapy.
Exactly.
I mean, those are your three choices.
Get a lot of toys.
Lots of toys.
All right, now we're going to
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kenzie, for being with us.
You're the
Thank
best.
you for sharing all of your wisdom that we paid many years of school for, and you've paid part as well, and we've all. But no, now this has been awesome, and so So as you look at play therapy, it's just another tool that you have in your tool belt to help your kid be the best they can be, and you be the best parent you can be as well. So as always, parents, don't be crazy. CrazyCoolFamily.com.